welcome to Interesting Choices, the podcast where we take a look at movies and other media, usually obscure, sometimes not, and look at the choices they make. Usually, and hopefully, they're pretty interesting. I'm Sky.
I'm Kate.
And this episode, we're taking a look at Freejack.
Freejack.
One word.
Yes, one word. So, I've seen this movie in the video stores, back when video stores existed, for so long, and in my mind, it somehow got conflated with Strange Days, even though I know they are vastly different movies.
Very different.
So I'm glad to finally have watched Freejack and been disabused of that notion, because wow, what a weird movie this is. Yeah,
and I gotta say, it's a little better than I remember it, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's surprisingly well put together.
And, I mean, this is just an absolutely stacked cast. You got Anthony Hopkins, Emilio Estevez, Rene Russo.
I mean, let's not forget Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger, the big draw, but also Brad is played by David Johansen, who you might know as the lead singer for the New York Dolls, or as his other persona, Buster Poindexter. Yeah. The nun is played by Amanda Plummer. You might remember as Honey Bunny from Pulp Fiction.
That's where I know her from.
Yeah. The hacker guy with the eye patch glasses was on Caprica. The bum who talks about eagles was a deputy commissioner on The Wire. Like, everyone in this has had some kind of really good career. Grandel Bush is in it. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's strange that a movie with so much influence and star power, nobody talks about it.
Yeah, and that was like the main impetus for me suggesting it, just because I remembered it being kind of okay, and then on second view, it's actually pretty darn good. But yeah, we should probably get started on the plot, because it's another short one, about 77 minutes, but it's kind of a doozy, and it just goes from the start.
I mean, it's actually a relatively simple plot, if you remove the sort of sci-fi nonsense from it. It's basically just like The Fugitive, Les Mis or something, right? Like, man is being chased by other man, and the world is against him, and then things happen.
Yeah, it's a man on the run movie.
Mm-hmm.
But how we get there is kind of interesting, and a little bit of a different take on the whole class warfare kind of thing.
Yeah, so watching this in 2020 is just a little too close to home. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I guess they thought it was a horribly pessimistic future view of 2009.
The far-off future of 11 years ago.
Yeah. So I guess we weren't as bad in 2009, but...
Yeah. We don't start there, but we do get there.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of do, because the beginning starts with cutting back and forth between timelines. Between two movies, we have Emilio Estevez and Rene Russo, and just one of the most, like, it's probably one of the best on-screen relationships that I could describe as, like, warm and kind of that goofy, quirky without being overly, like, unnatural about it. Like, it just felt like a real, like, they're just a goofy couple that love each other. Mm-hmm.
Emilio Estevez is an F1 driver, and I don't know if they really establish what Rene Russo does before.
Yeah, they kind of imply that she has some sort of writing job, because at some point he like makes a dig about her typewriter.
He calls her computer a typewriter.
Yeah, which sure, like
his present is 1991.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, We also see in the far future Mick Jagger leading a convoy of heavily armored vehicles in very dark spaces with lots of bright lights through what look like, vagrant camps, shanty towns, kind of just bulldozing their way through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very post-apocalyptic, and it's an interesting contrast because they cut back and forth between just the relative cozy comforts of a early 90s bedroom with like soft curtains and everything, and then the inside of this like battle wagon as it like rumbles all these homeless encampments.
Yeah. And Mick Jagger, like he looks fine in the rest of this movie, but whenever he has the helmet on, he just looks super dorky to me.
Yeah, some of their choices are not the coolest.
Like that's a very Michael Dukakis-esque helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Emilio Estevez, he wakes up late for the big race. He's going to do the big race. He apparently has a big future ahead of him. His manager wants him to schmooze with the sponsors. He doesn't do so well at that. Mm-hmm. Everything else seems to be going well. His manager, played by David Johansen.
And there's like a cute little moment where his girlfriend, she like gives him a little good luck charm, and then he asks her to nibble his ear for luck.
Yeah.
Right when they're like down in the pit.
It seemed odd, but the more I thought about it, the more like that's how a real couple just do something stupid like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a very real moment.
It is, and it comes off really cute.
But, yeah. Then we go to the future, and there's a very acrylic-y keyboard that's being used to advance video of some kind. It shows a car crashing. You can kind of put two and two together there, because they sort of do a match cut with a big Nissan ad-shaped bridge between the video and then present time.
Yeah, but at this point, it's still a little ambiguous as to what exactly is happening, because you're like, are they just reviewing archival footage, or is this happening in a parallel timeline?
Well, we don't even know it's the future quite yet.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, it's the bridge, and all these people have, giant trucks with machine guns and bulldozer blades and plexiglass salad bowls on the roofs. Probably my third favorite line when he's talking to the execs, and one of them's like, John Hamilton, hey, Sparkplugs, and then he's like, well, nice to meet you, Mr. Sparkplug.
They establish him as someone that doesn't super care too much about corporate hierarchies or things like that, prestige. He just wants to race his car and then go back and kiss his lady.
Yeah. Then we go to him racing. It's a race. Cars are close. A tire gets bumped, and his car is launched. Like, catapulted.
Yeah. You've been seeing this car flying through the air, hitting this bridge, the entire time leading up to even before he gets in the car. Because in the future, they're watching it on the video and kind of like scrubbing back and forth to very specific points in this footage. And so,
sort of isolating him from the car in just some really choice 1990s bad CGI.
Yeah, they're real good. There's a countdown in the future timeline where it's like, all right, we're going to get him in 15 seconds. Teams be prepared. And there's a bunch of like doctors in like shiny bunny suits kind of prepping this like table area.
Baked potato hazmat. Mm-hmm. And just a really cool laser grid effect that I thought, I don't know, it just kind of leapt out of me as just being really nice, especially for the time. And then, I don't know, I guess someone saw one of those machines that spits baseballs out, batting cages with the two wheels, and the ball gets caught and flung, because as soon as Alex's wheel touches another car's wheel, his car just gets shot right into the bridge.
Yeah, 45 degrees, just straight up into the overpass thing. You see, sort of at the moment of impact, whatever future magic happens, and then he is spirited away
onto a table, and everyone's like, they're going full operation, get him wrapped up, get the mask on him.
They were resuscitating his body because he died, and they were trying to bring his heart back. and they managed to get him back. And that kind of bothered me a little bit because I do not know how he died.
Yeah, I could almost see like maybe the force of impact stopping his heart if they got him at the exact moment, but that's like really precise.
Yeah.
I think it's just sort of there to be tension for the moment.
Yeah, because they need his body alive.
They haven't said why yet.
He's untouched otherwise. Like, he just looks like Emilio Estevez in a clean racing suit.
A little sweaty, but otherwise fine. He's missing his helmet for some reason. Oh, no, they pull it off him.
Yeah. But there's no, like, damage to it. There's no, like, cuts or bruises or burns or abrasions.
No singeing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So
he's fine. It could be a side effect of the time travel. We don't know. This is the only time we see it.
Yeah, it is. But they revive him, and they're wrapping him up. I thought they would actually wrap him up like a steak at the supermarket, but instead they just kind of put a plastic sheet over the like medical coffin that he's in.
Yeah, the medical grade Tupperware he's in. It really looked, because it really just looked like they're pulling a big sheet of saran off of a large roll to wrap him up. And they're like, all right, we got this one wrapped up. And Mick Jagger orders them to head out. And he really seems to be having a lot of fun in this movie. Like,
Mick Jagger is chewing all the scenery and loving his life.
Yeah, it's just really fun because, like, not every line delivery is the best one, but he's relishing all of them, and you can absolutely tell.
Mm-hmm. One of the last steps of this procedure, Emilio Estevez starts waking up unexpectedly. And so they're like, oops, we gotta make sure that we...
Shit, he's not brain dead.
Yeah. So we gotta make sure we wipe that prefrontal cortex.
We gotta stick the electro worm thingy to his brain.
Yeah. So they pull out this thing that kind of looks like an X-ray gun.
2 handles on either side, kind of almost like a big one of those spotlights with handles and like a little wormy, almost like fiber optics thing with a little glowing point at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I assumed it was like going to go up his nose or something, but then later he uses it against them and it just zaps them. So
yeah, no, it just shoots like force lightning at people.
Yep.
But just about as they're going to use it to basically burn out his personality and memories and things, the convoy is ambushed.
Yeah, we get kind of a hint about what exactly is going on with him when they start moving. The doctors are a little surprised. Mick Jagger's like, we've got $17 million worth of merchandise on that table. We got to get moving. Mm-hmm. And, they have future radar contacts on the road when the roads should have been clear. And there's some sort of future ambush going on.
It's implied later that it is a religious sect that is against freejacking?
Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel like if we wait to when these terms are actually explained, it might leave people a little confused. Because Mick Jagger's team are what they call bone jackers. They only say that once.
Yes.
They explain what they do, but they don't use that term except for one time in the movie. What they do is they pull people who are about to die. They have, they look back through history to find people who are going to die, and they pull them forward in time so that rich people can download their brains into them and basically live forever. Mm-hmm. So they're literally stealing people's bodies.
Yeah. When the rich people die, their essences go into this
supercomputer
called the spiritual switchboard, which is basically like the tabernacle from Zardoz.
Yeah. And when one of these people happens to escape, they're called the Freejack. Hence the movie. We get title drop pretty early because one of them just shouts, "He's a Freejack," and then he hops out of a hole that was made in the side of the truck with a rocket launcher.
It is wild to me that in the 18 years in the future that we as a society have gotten so far to the point where we have a term for this very specific thing that happens only during these very specific procedures, but it's so ubiquitous that everybody knows what it means.
Everybody knows what it means. Everybody knows the consequences for harboring someone who's a Freejack. There's laws in place and precedent for this kind of thing. Like someone mentions, like, according to the law, he's the property of whoever brought him forward, which is just like a whole boatload of ugh.
Yeah, it's wild. The amount of times this must have happened for all of these things to have occurred. The future is yonked real bad.
Yeah, this is probably one of the grimmer possible futures I've seen it as far as movie goes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like without going full apocalypse. This is definitely death of the middle class dystopia plus a couple orders of magnitude.
Yeah, I think they explicitly call that out at some point in this film, that there's only just like the gutter poor and the like hyper elite.
Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. It's kind of relegated to side conversations. I really wish that had been explored a little more. Like a lot of times in the movie, you kind of get the sense that the poor people see Emilio Estevez's character, Alex Furlong, as fighting against the system by escaping from being bone-jacked, I guess is the verb for that. But you don't really see any of it outside of those conversations, which I really wish they would have done. There's so much there.
Yeah, it's used as kind of like window dressing, where it could have been integrated better into like the larger themes of the movie.
I mean, especially with the main plot being what it is.
Yeah. So after the convoy is attacked by these religious zealots, and Emilio Estevez kills all of the doctors that weren't already killed, he escapes out the side of the hole in the truck, and then runs through the city being like, what's going on? For a very long time.
He gets a glimpse of the skyline, and of course this is 91, so there's still the two towers, but, you know, there's some future buildings. A lot of buildings have just gigantic billboards advertising suicide assistance and the date, you know, because it's a dystopian future, so.
He tries to make it back to some place that he recognizes and hails a cab that he pays for with his vintage watch.
Antique watch. And this is just like so much, I guess, for him, normal for New York, that he doesn't really question it aside from everything else that happened. But then the driver is alerted to the fact that he's being chased and tries to shoot him, and he does a flying leap out of a moving car and hits the bricks. Yeah,
the driver is very quick to catch on to the fact that this person is a Freejack, and therefore I need to do whatever it takes to not suffer the consequences of harboring a Freejack.
Yeah.
Even though, if he knew he was a Freejack, why would you try to shoot him? Because you're destroying $17 million worth of property.
It's one of the little inconsistencies that I just kind of gloss over because everything else is just so much fun. He makes it back to, I guess, his old apartment. He meets someone he knows. It's dark, so I guess he can't tell the guy's age. The guy seems surprised that he's there, but he just kind of runs past him and legs it all the way up what seems like 5 or 6 flights of stairs to his fiancée, Renee Russo's character's Julie Redland's apartment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she's not there.
Oh, it's some sort of ethnic family. That, oh no. And then there's a discussion about, didn't Julie live here? Oh, she sold this place to us a couple years ago.
And he's like, but I was with her here this morning. And then they have the sudden realization.
And you think for like half a second that they're like, maybe we'll help you because we feel some sort of connection to you. Instead, they're like, oh, he's a Freejack. You can't be here.
Can't help you. Can't nobody help you. And then they do that thing where he has a gun that it's a double-barreled shotgun, but they put 2 different cocking noises in when it's off screen.
He gets a lot of guns pointed at him in this movie.
Quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, and then he makes a run for it. I'm kind of blanking on what happens between there and the church. I know we get a scene. We do cut away to a businessy type building with businessy type mans discussing the situation.
I think there's a discussion between Mick Jagger and his bosses where, you know, he's being chided for losing this Freejack.
His character's Michael Michelet, and he's in an elevator, and they're discussing, you know, this guy died yesterday. Do we really want to give him more bad news about his body running away? And they go, and there's, you know, an obviously holographic person in a shadowed hooded robe, and they're like, maybe you should think about an alternative body. And then the thing was like, I don't want an alternative, I want this body. And then the shadow goes light, and it's Emilio Estevez's face, and it's sort of just kind of a surreal moment that doesn't really get replicated again.
No, but it kind of sets the tone for the sort of ending confrontation, because you need to know that there's like weird holographic technology and all sorts of other strangeness around the spiritual switchboard.
Then Alex Furlong stumbles into, I think he wanders in at night, and then he wakes up in the day with a nun talking to him and then pointing a gun at him again.
Mm-hmm.
Which probably, her line is, I think, one of my favorites, just because it stuck with me the most from the first time I saw it. Are you a praying man? Because I'd start, and then she points the gun at him.
He pathetically pleads for some sort of help because he's very confused.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And then she recognizes that, oh, you're that Freejack.
You're a Freejack. And then she helps him, and she's just like the realest nun.
She is. She's a take no shit kind of lady, but still devoted to whatever sect of religion, because this is not like your dad's Catholicism.
Because she is swearing up a storm. And also she has a gun.
And very little compunction about using it, honestly. You get the feeling that she's had to use it numerous times before and is just so over it at this point.
But she gives him the lowdown on what's going on, why he's there. He asks her to help him find Julie, but she can't find a listing for her. And she's like, well, it's been almost 20 years. Maybe she changed her name. Maybe she married. Maybe she moved. And then, she gives him new clothes and his very own gun that he can point at people. He just kind of accepts that he's going to need a gun.
But they do manage to find the address of his old manager. And
Brad.
That is where he sets off to next.
And apparently a worse neighborhood than the one with the gun on. And then we get Michelet trying to chew out Mick Jagger's character, Michael Vasendik. And I gotta say, I don't know who picked all of Mick Jagger's coats, but I love all of them. They're all just various flavors of, I thought this would be cool future look. It's like, I know most of them are objectively terrible. I still love them.
I have no complaints about any of his outfits, honestly.
But yeah, another great line. He's like, you didn't retrieve the body, you're not getting paid. And then Mick Jagger's just like, I got a job, and I'm going to do it. You stay out of my way. And then Michael Michelet's like, who do you think you're talking to? Mick Jagger's like, I know who I'm talking to. An asshole.
Yeah, he definitely puts him in his place.
Throws a Fabergé egg at him.
Yeah, it's wild.
They just have a moment where he's like, I'm a sophisticated mercenary. We get to Michael in a future bad part of town. It's just sort of your very stereotypical, everyone's in the street, everything's broken or dirty or both. He tries to ask someone for directions, and then a gunfight just breaks out.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the poorest editing moments in the movie, because someone grabs him to take him as a human shield, and then we cut away to someone else firing, and then we cut back to him, and there's no one around him, and he walks away.
I guess this was the sort of logical extension of the crime in the 80s, before, specifically in New York in the 80s, around the era of crack cocaine, that sort of thing. But yeah, this is just oh, by the way, casual murders on the street. Nobody seems very bothered by it.
Gunfights break out like this was a musical and that was a dance number, but
And then while he's fleeing, he casually sees the address that he's looking for. And he's like, I guess I'll just go in here then.
He just happens to stumble upon it and tries a few doors, and then is surprised by Brad, who is very excited to see him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brad's stoked. He's living in what looks like a super rundown, dingy, motel apartment.
Yeah. Mattress on the floor, not even a box frame, just a mattress and a sheet, and everything's dirty and or broken. And we learn that he's still wheeling and dealing, because he takes him to his secret box wall, the future secret bookcase kind of deal.
Oh, if you got anything, you got to hide what you have, or other people will try to take it. And it didn't even look that good, honestly.
Yeah, it looked really chintzy, even for the time.
Yeah, it. If you've ever watched extreme couponing shows where these people go and they get 1,000 groceries for negative $2 using a sheaf of coupons, they always have these garages that are just these shelving units filled with like Pampers and like French mustard and whatever, and it looks kind of like that.
Yeah, that's his foyer, and then he opens like one of the walls of boxes is fake, and it opens up and it goes into like this. It really reminded me of just like a senior citizen's, like a grandparent's apartment.
Yeah,
in the late 80s. It's like lots of brass, lots of peach-colored furniture, probably one of those tension spinning ball clocks somewhere. His ashtrays from a Porsche, from a 1967 Porsche.
Yeah, that's how he confirmed that it was the person that he knew, because Alex identified it immediately. And so they reminisce a little bit, and then Alex immediately cuts the chase and is like, "Where's my girlfriend?"
I kind of skipped over like a little scene with Mick Jagger, but it's just it just sets up that they can track him if he ever uses a phone. And we see the hacker guy, and they're just kind of chilling, and they've got like a good rapport. I kind of wish we'd seen more of Mick Jagger just hanging out with people in this movie, honestly.
Yeah, that guy was kind of his like right-hand man.
Second in command.
Yeah.
And they just have a moment where like somebody talked. Who was it? Maybe it was you. Put your hand on the glowing handprints.
Mick Jagger is mad that there was an ambush, and the exact time and place that they were going to be was a very closely kept secret.
Closely guarded. Yeah.
And so the implication is that someone leaked the information to these religious zealots so they could attack, and maybe it was you.
But it's just a very brief scene, and then we cut to Brad taking Alex through future streets full of people explaining, everything sucks. There's pollution everywhere. There's no ozone. There's literally nuclear waste around.
Mm-hmm.
They make a lot of pollution is really bad jokes.
He explains why they would want specifically Emilio Estevez's body. He's like, well, why don't they just take someone that like lives here or is alive right now? Because wouldn't that just be so much easier? But everyone alive apparently is just so riddled with disease.
Well, I think the other implication is they would take poor people. They can't take rich people because they're other rich people.
Mm-hmm.
And they would take poor people, but everyone's so like in bad shape, so very bad shape that they have to grab someone in perfect health from the past. Or they don't have to, but they have chosen to, because in their eyes, that's the most viable option for a healthy body.
Although, pessimistically speaking, I 100% think that if this were a real thing, they would 100% just grab other rich people.
Prey on the less rich people.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a lot of work to go pull someone out of the past, and you have to set up this elaborate military to protect the merchandise, as it were, from these terrorists. Like, because this should just be a routine medical procedure or something, right? Like, it's yes, you have to go to the place where they died and pull them out, but otherwise, like, if you just did it quietly, you could just do it, and then no one would ever know.
But I guess in this case, because the guy already died, they couldn't just bring him there because they, leave his brain in the spiritual switchboard or whatever. But they go to a diner where they can make a call. Brad seems to know the waitress. We get a close-up of some slop so we can just see how bad the future is. And one of the customers is missing, like, most of his teeth and is just pulling his gun on everybody.
Yeah, he's very upset about the slop, but then Brad kind of comes in and bullies him a little bit.
He just steals one of his crackers, which I have to assume is, like, the only good thing on the plate.
Brad's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make a call. Because Brad reveals that Emilio Estevez's fiancée is indeed alive. And she is not in the slums. She's in the sort of upper class area because she's now a powerful exec.
Battery Park in the Palisades of Power, which I'm pretty sure is just a phrase, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was like actually like an apartment building name or something.
Yeah, she's a high up in the McCandless Corporation.
Every time I saw it spelled out, I was like, McCandles.
Yeah, it's kind of the Google of this world, or maybe the Amazon, I guess. Whatever, like a mush between the two, right? The only company, the big one.
They don't say exactly what they do, probably because they kind of do everything, and they're the only one that does it. It's the biggest company, and she's like a senior VP or something there. Like, she's pretty high up. And then Alex really, really wants to talk to her, and Brad's like, no, it's a video phone. They can see everything. They can hear everything. If you get on it, they'll know where you are, which, we got that thing from Mick Jagger before, like they loaded him up into the system. So if he so much as walks by one of those things, they'll get him.
Yeah, at no point does he ever really try to disguise himself.
No, I mean, the most we get is this when, like, he's wearing a hat and Brad tells him to walk with a limp because he looks too healthy.
Yeah. But that's about it. Like, in a dystopian world where the authorities are using facial recognition technology in order to track people who they find unwanted.
Persons of interest.
Yeah, persons of interest. You might want to do something about that.
And we're also there, like, building-sized billboards with his face plastered on a big glowing reward.
Yeah, he doesn't even try to, like, I guess he wears a hat at one point.
He does really early on, but never again. I think he puts a helmet on later, but that's just because it's a good helmet.
Yeah. No, he's very bad at trying to survive, honestly. Like, he's super bad at it. Since he can't be on the call, he's kind of sitting at a table, and the gun-happy customer is sitting there eating his food, and Emilio Estevez is kind of staring at him for no good reason.
No real reason. Yeah.
They just kind of stare at each other, and then that pisses off the customer, who threatens him with a gun.
Another pretty decent line is something like, if you keep staring at me, you'll get to see me kill you. He pulls his gun out.
Yeah.
Again.
And then Emilio Estevez also pulls out his gun, but then puts it on the table.
Well, he kind of does the thing where he's like looking away, and then he just discreetly pulls his gun out and puts it on the table, and then looks back up, and then like winks at him.
It is like such an antagonistic move. Bucko, regardless of what happens, you are asking for trouble.
Brad shows up. He verbally spars with the overly gun-happy customer. And something I noticed this time around is once he sits down and he's talking with Alex again, the guy behind him just starts pointing his gun at Brad's back repeatedly and pointing it up in the air, just like a couple of times before he's like, goes back to his slop.
But yeah, Brad sits down and says that he arranged some sort of meeting, I think.
He's like, they're coming in a limo to pick us up. And then, he makes a little slip because he's about to eat what looks to be just like 2 slices of rye bread.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why do I have to eat this junk? Soon I'm going to be eating caviar.
Yeah, and then Emilio Estevez, finally, in a singular moment of self-preservation, is like, wait a minute.
You said you.
And not us. And he's like, oh man, I just, and then he's like,
you've been gone for 20 years, and then the cops show up.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you sold me out. And he gets up and tries to run, and Brad grabs him, kind of.
He jumps on his back, like piggyback style. I was like, I got him, he's mine.
Thus starts kind of the long, elaborate chase sequence that is the rest of the movie.
Yeah, we get some brief pauses, but Brad gets shot almost immediately after grabbing onto Alex by the gun-happy customer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Chekhov's customer, I guess.
And then Alex escapes kind of out the back where there are motorcycle cops, and he manages to steal a motorcycle and take a couple of the motorcycle cops out.
Yeah, he grabs one and then he rams the other one with the motorcycle, which manages to, like, he gets knocked into a plywood door and is just kind of caught in the crack of the door.
And then weirdly, he rides back into the diner on the motorcycle.
Well, it's really weird because he's going for a while and it seems like he's getting away, but then he drives right back through, and I didn't check, but I think Brad's body might have still been on the ground when he drives through.
Yeah, the gun-happy customer is still in there. You see him, like, sitting in the back.
Yep, just back, eating his slop.
Yeah, and
I guess it wasn't that bad.
No. But yeah, he's being pursued by other motorcycle. At this point, they're not cops, they're bonejackers, I guess.
Yeah, the cops are they're pretty recognizable even for being cops. It's like bright blue, like royal blue leather jackets and bikes and future helmets.
Mm-hmm.
Then he starts getting chased by the bonejackers. Oh no, they don't start chasing him until he blows through a checkpoint.
He crashes his motorcycle through the front window of this diner and then starts peeling out through the streets of New York. There's a bit of a chase there where I think he's escaping a variety of different things, including like pastel colored armored vehicles.
Yeah.
Some of which have branding on the side. Yeah.
Yeah. One of them was called Sheila.
Yeah.
Or it had the name Sheila written on the side.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was branding or like World War II style, like
name the
vehicle art.
Vehicle names. Yeah. This is like the first half of the extended chase. We get a brief pause after he crashes through the checkpoint, and Mick Jagger is alerted to his presence because of that. Mm-hmm. He's like, hold on, I think I know where he's going. Which is straight to Julie's place in the nice part of town and they really kind of went all out with the future vehicles in this because everything looks like, I'm not even sure because it's all rounded and kind of bulbous.
They're very streamlined, but not in a actual streamlined kind of way.
Like I almost want to say balloon animals, but not quite. Whoever's building the cars saw the bullet train and was like, I want all of the vehicles to look like that.
But then you squish them down so that they're not like, they seem a little too low and weird, but they committed to it.
He gets to Julie's apartment and Julie pulls up in her pod thing, or she is pulled up by her bodyguard Boone, played by Grandel Bush.
Yeah.
Who's just the coolest, I gotta say. I just really dug his outfit. Like just gray blazer, gray turtleneck, really rocking the 90s retro future aesthetic.
Like, honestly, in my opinion, was the hottest guy in the movie. Because
with matching wakizashi.
No, he was dope as shit. And honestly was a much better main character than this dude, but fine.
We could have at least had him like around longer. I really could have used more Boone in my life.
Yeah. I guess as an aside, there was a scene earlier of Julie in a high-powered business meeting.
Talking to, looked like she's translating for some sort of contract negotiations with a Japanese firm of some kind. Michelet was there, and it's just kind of showing that she's on her game because she manages to get them to give up the mineral rights. We don't know the stakes of this at all, but they mention a trade war that they lost.
She's very high up. She's savvy. She knows what she's doing, and she has the ear of the boss, who is
they have a video call.
Yeah, they Skype McCandless.
McCandless, played by Anthony Hopkins. He's in an antique car in what appears to be Sydney, smoking a cigar near the opera house, but not in it.
Yeah, it is the most like Zoom background nonsense that like. No, really, you guys, I'm definitely in the BA test kitchen or whatever.
I'm totally on the Enterprise, guys. Can't you tell from my background? You definitely get the sense that like they're really chummy. They're on good terms. And she stops back at her apartment. We don't know for what. She just needs to stop there for a second before she goes to Tokyo, which is apparently where she's going next, according to McCandless. And it's a really horror movie kind of esque moment where she's in her bathroom and then Alex is suddenly behind her in the mirror and he's all like dirty and disheveled and just kind of glaring.
Okay, also, we're gonna rewind back to Alex's conversation with his manager, because we didn't really talk about it. His body was never recovered.
Insurance wouldn't pay out because of that.
And so Julie had to grieve the loss of her fiancé for 18 years without ever really getting that closure. And then this dirty ghost comes back looking exactly like the person that she lost.
But it's such a horror movie moment because she sees him and he's like, "Hi, honey."
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, dude, maybe wash your face or something.
Yeah. So she, understandably, is pretty upset about all this.
Yeah, she immediately assumes, because this is apparently such a common occurrence in the future, that someone has bone-jacked him. And apparently knew about her and wanted to be with her. So they took him. So she just assumes it's someone else wearing his body, essentially. So she runs away from him, and there's a confrontation.
He tries to convince her that it's him by holding up the thing that she gave him, the pendant. And she asks him how he even got in, and he said the door was open.
The door was open. I just walked in. Then she opens It's apparently a voice-controlled apartment, because when she goes in, she's just like, door opens. She goes into another room, she's like, panel, the security panel opens, and apparently there were no unauthorized accesses.
She's right to be suspicious, right? Like, I 100% can't blame her for being like, everything about this seems wrong. And we know that anybody that could bonejack someone is probably super wealthy and super powerful, so...
And probably pretty weird.
Yes. Yeah, there is so many reasons to be on your guard. So she just pretty much straight up is like, intruder alert.
Yep.
It's going to turn it on. You got 30 seconds to leave, or the cops will come get you.
15 seconds till the elevators are locked down. Yeah, and he books it on out of there. And Mick Jagger shows up right afterwards. And so she's like, pretty much realizes right away that actually was Alex and there wasn't anybody inside him.
And at this point, he's made his way down to the street.
He got into the parking garage where there's some sort of wine delivery service in the future that's like those Swan food delivery trucks, but much more themed. It's all wood paneling and glass windows, and it's like a wine cellar on wheels. It's just like, is that your truck? No, it's the company's. Not anymore. He steals the wine truck.
Yeah, the most conspicuous, least agile vehicle that he could possibly find.
Filled with glass bottles and just the exact opposite of every other vehicle on the street as far as looks go.
It is the perfect vehicle for having a wacky late 80s, early 90s style chase.
Lots of scenes where he's taking a hard turn and wine just spills out of the sides in glass bottles.
I am legit surprised that they didn't have two workmen carrying a pane of glass or like a future fruit stand for him to crash through.
Or just a big wall of boxes or something. Uh-huh. We get Mick Jagger is chasing him in one of his ATVs and manages to broadcast himself into the dash-mounted laptop inside of the wine truck. Which is probably one of my favorite exchanges in the whole movie.
Yeah, you get the sense that Mick Jagger just is mostly fucking with him. He's loving this chase. Like, I think this is the first time he's really gotten to just fully go all out in his job.
But you kind of get the sense from before when they were about to pull him forward that he sees something in Alex because he's watching the race and he's like, this guy's good. He just has one of those moments.
There is a implied respect for him in a, like, if situations were different, we could have been friends type vibe.
Yeah.
But
and they definitely have some of that banter during this drive.
They do.
This chase. Mick Jagger's like, I can't remember all of the lines, just except for the one that really got me to chuckle was like, Mick Jagger's egging him on. He's like, tell him he needs to stop. You know, you're not going to get away. And then Emilio Estevez shuts the laptop and Mick Jagger's like, oh no, I'm afraid of the dark.
Which is hilarious because you see him in the vehicle, like next to his dude saying it. And you're like, this guy, he's very charming.
He's having so much fun.
Yeah, he's a goofball. He's the antagonist, but you're like, I can't hate this dude.
That Vicendic.
Yeah. So the chase continues. They pull out those like brightly colored armored vehicles to
the Easter APCs, and it's like a small thing I thought was weird, but kind of added to it was like every time Emilio Estevez shut the laptop, Mick Jagger somehow remotely opens it back up to taunt him some more.
It is the most anime fucking thing, and I love it.
There's a big chase. There's a real good slapstick moment where Alex is like taunting him back for once. It's like, you couldn't catch a cold. You couldn't catch... I don't want to say it because it's kind of shitty to say. But it's a venereal disease from a sex worker, essentially, but in less kind terms. And then Vicendic's just like on the screen pointing forward, and he looks up and there's a semi-truck in front of him. just shears the top half of the truck off, and you have him ducking down. It's a real slapstick moment.
And so in his new convertible, Alex is just driving along. And then eventually they corner him on a blockaded bridge.
And he just guns it towards the blockade. And Mick Jagger just seems kind of genuinely worried about him at this point. Like, just a little bit, but it's there. It's genuine.
Yeah, he's like, you're not going to make it. Just don't do it, dude. Just give up.
Don't do it. Stop. Don't do it. And then at the last second, Alex jumps, clears both the truck, the rest of the road, and the side of the bridge off the side of one of New York's many bridges.
Mm-hmm. And then falls into probably the Hudson River. Who knows?
Who knows? It's bad. Mick Jagger looks over and it's like, if you drink any of that, I'm out of a job. It's just straight to him pulling himself out of the river. There's a guy in an antique chair eating some sort of meat out of some sort of pie tin.
You know, Emilio Estevez is looking and acting very defeated. He kind of slumps up against the wall.
Yeah, he's in a future he doesn't understand. The only person he has left has turned on him, the woman he loved. So he's in a low place. It kind of felt like there could have been more before this to really get that home, but it's where we are. And if I remember right, the actual chapter select for this on the DVD I have calls this chapter Of Rats and Eagles.
I mean, that's apt. So the man offers Alex some food, and he's like, you want some of this? And he's like, what is it?
River rat.
Alex at this point is like, how do you eat that? Like, I'm like, okay, dude, but you're in the future where they've literally bone-jacked you through time, and you're just gonna complain about a dude eating readily available protein?
Yeah.
But the guy takes it in stride. He's like, well, you cut off the head and the tail, and you roast up the rest, or whatever he says.
And the next, it's all about the sauce. You don't just plop a boiled rat down in front of someone and say, here's your river rat, red wine or white.
Alex is in the sort of pits of despair, and then
he's just like, I'm beat, and the homeless man launches into one of the weirdest motivational speeches I have ever heard in my life.
Yeah. Like, I didn't understand where he was going for most of it until the very end, because he just like started off talking about like, well, do you think an eagle who just caught a fish, who's just about to get home to his nest to feed his family? And then I'm like, what is going on here?
Flying through the rain and the mud and the snow and the bullets.
Yeah.
It's almost there, and he's just like, well, fuck it. And two little cartoon X's go on his eyes, just like in the old cartoons. It's just all over the place.
And it seems to work because it like shuts down Emilio Estevez's brain enough where he's like, I
have to keep trying.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Yep. But yes, it works, and he has found the motivation to keep surviving.
And he gets up and walks away, and we just have a really weird moment that could have been established better, I feel like, because it's the first real glimpse we get that like the underclass is rooting for him in some way, because the guy knows his name. Mm-hmm. He hasn't said his name. As soon as Alex is off trying to make things right, he's like, you ain't beat yet, Alex Furlong. Not as long as you got breath in you. And it's like, how do you know who? I mean, I know there's billboards and stuff. I know that, but that's a logical leap I have to make. The movie hasn't established that this is really something that people are talking about.
This guy lives under a bridge. Like, where is he going to see a giant billboard with Alex's name? Or, like, is he on, like, river rat internet boards? Like,
Well, I mean, it's all over, and I guess got a good view of like the rich part of town, which I'm sure like the entire buildings or billboards or something. Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure he's seen it or heard it somewhere because apparently everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, this is over the course of like maybe 36 hours max.
Alex wanders away. Julie realizes her mistake, and Boone's trying to convince her not to go searching for him. And then she's like, I know him better than anyone else. I know where he goes when he's upset. I know what he looks for, which is apparently just some random stone steps somewhere. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, he pops out of the shadows. Another horror movie moment. Him and Boone have a moment where they're pointing guns at each other, and Rene Russo's like, "Knock it off, you two." Mm-hmm. They hop into her vehicle pod, which has like the driving part is open air for some reason, and the inside is completely enclosed without windows or anything, which I just found super weird.
Yeah, I guess it's supposed to harken back to a carriage type situation, right? Like really drive home the class differences, right? Because presumably a lower class person's gonna have to drive them around.
Yeah, but she contacts someone. Character's name is Morgan. He's played by John Shea. He's been in a ton of stuff, but apparently he's this dystopian futures version of some sort of underground railroad type deal where he helps people escape. Mm-hmm. They don't say from what. It's kind of implied it's other Freejacks that he helps, but she makes a call and they head to Future Club.
This is almost exactly the same scene as in G Savior. Like, right? We need to go meet my shady contact now that we're on the run, and he'll help us out somehow.
Except there isn't Illuminati, and this club is a much more believable club instead of looking like it's in a hotel lobby on the second floor. Yeah, she just gives him like a suit jacket to wear over his rags to go in the club. And she's just like, lie low, I'll go talk to him. And he accepts a strange drink from a bartender, which is very blue.
Yeah.
And it gets him hammered.
Immediately. Like future hammered. And there is some sort of media there.
It's she says it's like for the club channel, so I guess they have like their own channel they broadcast inside the club for club patrons where they just kind of talk to people and put it up, I guess. It seems like a very 90s thing that they would have thought they'd do in the future.
Yeah. But yeah, she starts interviewing him and hammered off his ass. He just starts going on and on about all the things that he's been through and how terrible they are.
Well, it starts out really great. She asks him if he wants to be interviewed for the club channel, and he's like, fuck it. Everyone's chasing me. Why are they chasing you? They want me. What do they want about you? My body.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, you're quite full of yourself, or something along those lines.
One of the conceited types I see. And they find out that it's Alex Furlong, so they're like, all right, put this on the network. We need everyone to see this.
Mm-hmm. He is so bad at lying low. So bad at it.
Like, it almost feels like if this was handled just a little poorly, it would have been completely unbelievable. But, like, you totally believe that whatever future booze this is would have knocked him on his ass immediately. And that when he's drunk, he just does not have the whatever small amount of sense he had before he was hammered.
Yeah, I kind of thought they were going to imply that the bartender knew who he was and was roofing him in order to, like, collect the reward. But no, this is just how future booze works.
Yeah, it's blue and it will mess you up.
Yeah, Julie and Morgan are having their chat, and he's like, oh, this is way too hot for me.
And then Alex is immediately on television.
Yeah.
There's like a really funny moment where they kind of do more of the people are rooting for him because he's like on TV and he's like, someone chasing after me and he's got a name and that's Vicendic and I got a message for him. Fuck you. You're never gonna catch me. So it's just such a great moment. It's like belligerent drunk man on television. And then Julie just grabs him and then pulls him by the ear out of there, and everyone at the bar is just like shouting his name. Like they're chanting his name. So you really get that sense that people might be cheering him for some reason that you don't really see other than this and the bum talking about it, and then later with Boone. But yeah, then they leg it to Morgan's place, and he's like, he can't stay here. He can't stay anywhere for long. She contacts McCandless to try to get help, because that's pretty much all she's got left at this point, because Morgan can't help them, and there isn't really anyone else they can turn to. And it's when we get the lowdown about a little more of the lore that harboring Freejacks is super illegal. Freejacks are the property of whoever brings them forward. Whoever's using the spiritual switchboard is a tightly kept secret that even the CEO of the company who makes the darn thing isn't privy to. I think he says he'll try and help them out. I don't remember if it's like a flat refusal or not, but
yeah, he says he'll like look into it because they want to know who the name of the
person looking for him.
Yeah, so they can directly appeal to that person.
But then a tender evening with Julie and Alex reconciling because, she thought he was dead and then suddenly he's not.
Mm-hmm. Then at some point they decide to go
to boat.
It's Julie, Boone, and Alex that end up going to the boat. They send Julie off in order to reasons.
I don't remember. I know it's just Boone and Alex. Boone's there to protect Alex. You get to talk to Boone more, and he's like, the fact that you're running away is giving a lot of people hope. People like my grandma. As long as you keep her smiling, I'll have your back. Mm-hmm.
Which kind of is out of nowhere.
Yeah. Like, except for the 2 moments before, that thing isn't explored or mentioned at all, and those moments are just kind of brushed over or not really even acknowledged by the movie.
Yeah.
And I really wish that had been a bigger part of the movie, especially because of this.
Yeah, because Boone is risking everything for this stranger, and we don't really understand why, right? Like, it's a huge character moment for him that is a big question mark for us.
Yeah, like he, I guess, came up from nothing to become a bodyguard, and he's supporting his grandma, and, Alex running away from the rich people trying to take his body is giving, the poor people of the world some hope, or at least, letting them live vicariously through him sticking it to some rich guy who's died.
But they never spell it out. You kind of have to piece it all together. And Boone's eventual arc could have been a little bit more weighty had they spent a little bit more time establishing who he was and where he came from emotionally.
Yeah. And, I mean, any more time with Boone on screen just would have been awesome. But they get to boat, and boat is set up.
For the first time, Alex has some, self-preservation instinct, and he's like, who set up this boat? This feels weird. And they pause on the dock right before they get to the boat.
Yeah, there sure aren't any people manning that boat.
Mm-hmm. And then immediately the boat blows up.
Yeah. Pretty much right after he says, it's real quiet, too quiet. Mm-hmm. They have one of those moments. And then a gunfight breaks out.
I don't remember if at this point the VP has called in his own troops yet or not.
Yeah. We haven't explicitly gotten him saying that, but he kind of said earlier that, I'll be handling this from here on out when he was having his hashing out with Vasindik. Mm-hmm. And then these guys are using live rounds, and Vasindik's people were trying to use stunners against him, which are just blue electric lasers. Mm-hmm. Boone and Alex just have a couple fun combat bro moments. That's kind of where we lose Boone.
Yeah, Boone gets several heroic deaths, honestly.
Yeah.
He does that thing where he's shot, but then ends up killing the guy who shoots him with a sword.
Yeah, he's been carrying this wakizashi around the whole movie. And the first time I saw it, it's oh, he's never going to use that, is he? And then he does. And, I mean, yeah, he's going to die, but, at least it wasn't, lost in the shuffle of everything. But, yeah, he has Alex cover him, and he flanks around 3 guys who are shooting at him, and he takes them all out. And then one of the guys isn't quite dead and gets him in the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And then he takes that guy out with his sword.
Mm-hmm. But he's injured, and he tells Alex to go. Keep making his grandma smile. You see that he's got some grenades, I guess.
Either he had them or the guys had them. He gets a hold of them one way.
Yeah, he has some grenades. And then as more of these pursuers are coming, he sets them off with a smile.
Yeah, he gets a crowning moment of awesome for sure, to quote TV tropes.
And he buys Alex a bit of time to continue fleeing.
Run into some sort of industrial area where Vasindik, the Bonejackers, arrive at this point. And one of them is kind of stalking him, and I remember this part very distinctly, because it's a really good, body armor actually works in this world moment. Because he's leaning down, he's got the full armored torso, motorcycle helmet deal, and Alex sneaks up behind him with a big pipe, a big length of pipe, and just full body swings right into the head. And guy's unfazed, stands up, turns around. Alex tries hitting him in the body, on the arms. Nothing's working. This guy's armor actually does something. Mm-hmm. Alex manages to knock his gun away. He gets knocked over, and we have a neat moment that was kind of foreshadowed earlier, just in a throwaway scene where he uses a pipe to block a door, and someone fires a stunner at the door, and the energy from the stunner travels through the door up the pipe. Alex fires the stunner at some loose copper wiring, which is touching the guy's helmet, and electrocutes.
There's like half a moment where he's just like standing there eyeing the guy's clothes.
He just takes the helmet. Yeah. I mean, I probably would, considering if I had just wailed on someone and that like it didn't even phase them, like some kind of magic future metal helmet.
But at this point, he knows that that these guys at least are going after him with stunners, because he recognizes that the game would be over if they damaged him. So he has a little bit more bravado than he probably should at this point because of that knowledge.
Yeah. He and Vicendic meet up, and I'm having trouble remembering this.
So basically, he like single-handedly takes out all of Vicendic's squad, and he manages to like corner Vicendic and hold a gun up to him, and Vicendic's like, okay, well, if you're gonna take me out, and he's like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna spare you. And they have a little convo, and I think this is where that like in another life we could have been friends moment is like really established. Where I think he literally straight up like calls him his friend.
Yeah, you don't make too many friends in this business.
Yeah,
that's what he says.
Yeah, and Alex is like, you're not my friend.
Who said we were friends? Yeah, and I think the other team pops up and Alex guns them down too, actually saving Vicendic's life. That's the part I was having trouble remembering, because Alex is like, Vicendic gives him the name of the person who's trying to take Alex's body, and it's, drumroll, McCandless.
After this little conversation, Alex lowers his weapon, and then, all these bonejackers show up, and he's like, bro, I saved your life, and this is how you're gonna do me? And he's like,
I told you the name, but I don't want you to think I don't value my life so highly. You got a 5-minute head start.
Yeah, and he honors it. Like, he just lets him go, like John Wick style. Just like he books it.
It's just a pretty funny moment where he's out. Their pod there has been blown up in an earlier attack, and an APC, one of the pastel APCs, starts rolling towards him. He pulls out his pistol and he starts shooting at it, and it stops 2 feet in front of him, and Julie pops out at the top. She's like, hop in.
Yeah. Which was a huge surprise to everyone involved, I think. Like, I did not expect her to be there.
I almost did, but like the way it was coming towards him, I was like, well, maybe it wasn't her. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. And then she pops out. Alex is just like, you're driving that?
If it were like a small passenger vehicle, I'd be like, okay, that's probably Julie. But like I don't know how she got her hands on this military vehicle. That's a much more interesting story.
Well, it's one of the Bonejackers' pastel APCs, so I guess they just left the keys in it or something.
I guess. At some point, he reveals that it's McCandless, and she's like, no, I just talked to him. He's definitely alive. We need to talk to him directly and figure this all out.
Yeah, and I forget how that conversation exactly goes, but they end up calling Michelet because she'd been trying to call McCandless, but he's not reachable at the moment. That's why. And Alex pretends to take her hostage. And Michelet's like, I guarantee you safe passage. Just come to the office building and we'll have a chat.
Yeah. And he believes it. So they just go to the McCandless building and are allowed up the elevator. Yep.
And get the big reveal that McCandless has been dead for almost 2 days. And that Mr. Michelet has actually actively been trying to prevent them from getting Alex's body because he wants to take over the company. So he's just going to let them go, or at least he says he is. And I just remembered we missed one of the best nun scenes in the movie earlier because it's got no bearing on it.
Oh, right. Yeah. The Bonejackers, like, interview, or somebody?
They bring the nun from before, the gun nun. They bring her to Michael Michelet, and, he's like, questioning her, asking her, he was there and you haven't seen him since? And she's like, no. And he slaps her, and then she's like, turn the other cheek, and then she just grabs him and knees him in the crotch.
Yeah, and you see, as she grabs him, all of his guards are like ready to like jump in, and then after she knees him, they all just kind of step back and just let him slowly crumple to the ground.
She's like, the good Lord said to turn the other cheek, but he never had to deal with dickheads like you.
Yeah. 0 people respect this man. But yeah, so in the office, he's like, yeah, just don't do anything. Like, we let this guy die, and I become VP, and you guys can just live your lives out, whatever. Like, sure, Julie, you'll be fired, but, like, cool.
Do whatever you want. Also, Julie, you're fired. Julie slaps him. I'm not quite sure why, but...
And then, of course, they get in the elevator, and Alex is like, you don't really think they're going to let us go, do you? And, of course, Michelette's already called in the hit squad to be like, no, just take him out. Just take him out.
Yeah, kill him as soon as they step out of the elevator. Yeah. And Alex checks his ammo. He's got 1 shot. It's just like, you think we can get him to line up for me?
In a different movie, Alex would have done something clever here to try to save himself and Julie. Like, hopped into the top of the elevator or tried to stop it at a different floor. Instead, he just, steps to the side.
They just take cover on the sides. Yeah. Which makes a certain amount of sense, I guess. But
it does, but also, they had no plan going into this. They were like, we're fucked. Straight up. There's nothing we can do. They didn't even try to stop the elevator. It's an elevator. You should be able to stop them. Somehow, the doors open, and all this gunfire happens.
Well, they're about to shoot, and then, boom, the Bonejackers show up to save the day. Alex actually does get to shoot one person with his 1 bullet before the elevator starts going back.
Yeah, it's pretty silly and pretty ineffectual. The Bonejackers are shooting these other guys who... I think they learn are Michelette's, private security.
Private security, yeah. The plan is to get to the 100th floor where there's apparently a fire escape pod, quote unquote. I can't wait for the future where buildings have ejection seats. But yeah, then it shoots past that, and it's uncontrollable, and then they're like, Max got him now. He's taking him right to the spiritual switchboard at the top of the building, which is in a giant antenna shaped like a jack. Have you ever played jacks with the...
There's a lot of jack imagery in this.
Yeah, it seems to be like the symbol for the McCandless company because it shows up on the screen whenever they're waiting for a call to connect.
I didn't actually think the jack part of Freejack would literally mean jack instead of to hijack, but it's a clever little whatever it is, play on words.
Or even just like a addition, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird symbolic layer that some production designer was like, but what if we made it real jacks?
Yep, we got bone jacks, we got free jacks, and we got real jacks.
Yeah, so at some point, you have to infer that someone just started naming them bone jacks because they work for McCandless, and that's the logo, right?
I always thought it because they were jacking people's bones. I don't know.
Right. But I think they probably have some other title, temporal relocation engineers or something. But colloquially, they started calling them bone jacks, both because they kidnap people from the past, but also maybe because of the McCandless Jack logo.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's definitely the kind of movie logic you see out there. But they get to floor 200, and it's a holodeck.
Yeah, and this is where they blow some of their special effects budget.
The rest of it.
Yeah. They step out of the elevator and are immediately taken into the Matrix.
They go through, in the American Southwest with weird skies, all sorts of tableaus. McCandless steps out of nothingness and just sort of lays it all out on the table for them, which I'm pretty sure a lot of it was just him blowing hot air considering what happens later. But, I mean, you don't really know.
I actually do believe a lot of it. The reason that he specifically needed Alex's body and not just some other randos was because he was in love with Julie and has been for the longest time, and that he's a very powerful incel, pretty much.
Yeah.
And he's like, if I just had his body, then you would love me, because clearly that's how women work.
If I look like the guy, then that's what'll do it, not his personality or soul or anything.
I won't be completely degrading and abusing your memory of him. That's definitely not exactly what you would think as soon as you saw me walk out. I do believe it's true, because otherwise he would have just been like, oh, well, that guy's gone. Let's just get me another body. I'm not going to risk dying forever just to have this one specific dude.
That's fair.
But he's like, now that I've seen you together, I know that, like, what I did was wrong, and I'm calling off the troops.
It's just this really pompous speech about, I've committed a grave sin, and I sentence myself to death, because it's Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, and so he video calls Vicendic, and he's like, I call it all off, you'll get paid, just...
Protocol secret code.
And then he says, okay, well, I sentenced myself to death, and but all the paperwork's still in place so that everyone will think that you are me, and that the transfer has been complete, so you will get all of the things that I have, and then you two can live your life out happily. Kind of spoiling the reveal at the end a little bit.
A little bit. It's a little more foreshadowing, just because, I don't know. It depends on how well you're taken by something else, but if we go too far into that, that's spoiling it before we even get there.
Yeah.
But, they gather around another giant jack, and Anthony Hopkins has him, like, you'll see a sequence of numbers, enter them, and then hit delete, and then I'll die.
Mm-hmm. You know, you see Emilio Estevez hesitate a little bit, but then he, like, starts punching the numbers, and he hits button, and Anthony Hopkins kind of, like, wiggles a little bit in the air.
It's like, huh, that didn't work. Do it again.
You see him hesitate a little bit more this time.
I can't remember if he actually does it a second time, and then it doesn't work, and then they're like, do it a third time, or if he just straight skips to you're stalling.
I think he skips to you're stalling, because I think he gets halfway through the second time, and then because it feels weird to him, and you see the sequence of numbers. It's like 6927154, whatever. You see him trying to punch it in, but like only half the numbers are lit up. And yeah, he says, you're stalling. This feels real weird. And then the elevator opens up behind him.
And it's Vicendic secret code was come up here immediately, apparently.
He's like, what took you so long? I've been stalling these idiots for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you find out that, there's no other choice. The transfer has to go through because you're here. We have all the guns. All the things are going to happen. And so the Jack sculpture kind of like opens up or something in parts.
Well, they put each of them, Anthony Hopkins and Emilio Estevez, put their hands on the Jack balls or whatever they are. Like there's the two pointy ends and then there's the four parts with balls on them, and they put their hands on them, and then one of the pointy ends opens up into future technology crystal and starts zapping them, and they have a Vulcan mind meld while mind transfer goes on, and then Julie just elbows someone and grabs a gun.
She elbows someone, and like there's this ridiculous montage, and you see that like 20-something seconds have elapsed of this transfer, and then she just like takes a gun and shoots the crystal. It explodes. Yeah,
the big computer on the wall with the scientists that don't show up until after the holodeck is turned off briefly, which were apparently there this whole time.
I can't imagine what it'd be like to be them, just being like...
Just standing around watching these people talk about this.
They have to go home at the end of the day and explain to their loved ones how their day was at work, and it's like,
How was your day, hon? Oh, I watched a ghost talk to a caveman.
But yes, they're very confused, but then...
It explodes, everyone falls down. Michelet walks in, he's been shot. He thinks he's won, and Emilio Estevez gets up and does a pretty okay Anthony Hopkins impression.
It's not.
I feel like if it had been any worse, it would have given up the goat.
The transfer's complete, and he, like, flexes a little bit.
It's me, McCandless.
And Mick Jagger's, like, siding with the scientist, being like, can this actually happen that quick? And the scientist is like, sometimes not. Who knows? There's no way to know.
There was 27 seconds of transfer. Maybe. Then he gets like a little PDA with the passcode on it.
Michelet is like, that's not him. If it was him, he would know his passcode. And then he's like, maybe I do know the passcode, after like pretending to think for a while.
And he just slowly, laboriously saying numbers out.
And they were kind of the numbers that he was punching in onto the keypad, but I think he got them in the wrong order. Yeah.
The first 3 or 4 were like the correct ones, then he's just started shouting random numbers, and Michelet lets out a howl of indignation as he believes he's been thwarted.
At first, Michelet's like, that's not right, and then Mick Jagger's like, it is correct.
They keep saying proceed, which is great.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Yeah, like, Mick Jagger's about to shoot him before he starts giving off the numbers, but as soon as he gives off the first one, he's like, 6? 6.
6.
Oh.
9.
Keep going. Proceed.
Proceed.
Yeah, and then Michelet, like, wants to stop him, so he pulls out a gun. Mick Jagger turns around and shoots Michelet.
That's the end of him. Emilio Estevez is like, Jewel, we're going to get you into some nice clothes, and then we're leaving. And then they go down to the car. Emilio Estevez, Anthony Hopkins, is like, I'll be driving today, Dennis. Mm-hmm. They get in their antique car.
And then they're immediately stopped by a large blockade of bonejackers.
The Pastel Bonejacker Brigade.
And then Mick Jagger is like, you know, I knew you would slip up at some point.
I just had to keep watching you. McCandless doesn't know how to drive.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh no. But then he's like, Julie will have to coach him better.
You'll have to coach him better than that. And then they just have like a we're all friends now.
Yeah, it's wild. They're like buds. But honestly, this is like the best position that Mick Jagger could be in. Because now he's like both saved the life of and like is kind of buds with the most powerful man in the world.
And also knows his darkest secret.
Yeah, there's like no downside for him here. Yeah, and so they just like let him go and they drive off into the sunset.
Yep. Roll credits.
Yeah, it's basically like if at the end of Les Mis, Jean Valjean and like Javert just go for burgers. Like, yep. I'm tired of chasing you. Let's just be buds and hang out.
Yeah. Let's grab some chili and play cards. I don't know.
I really enjoyed this movie. The takes on the sort of dystopian future where everyone's poisoned because there's no ozone and there are rampant diseases and
chemicals and nuclear waste everywhere.
Yeah, that hit a little too close to home at points. Like, had I watched this movie in 2019, I would have been like, oh, well, things are bad, but they're not that bad. But, like, 2020, y'all. Yeah. Despite that, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The actors gave great performances. The choices that they made were interesting, but they all fit together relatively cohesively.
Yeah. I kept thinking while I was watching it, like, I can understand why this didn't take off, but I'm still really upset that it didn't, because it's just a pretty darn good movie.
Yeah, all the performances were great. The special effects were pretty good for what they were. The action sequences were coherent. You could actually tell what was going on, unlike some of the other films we've watched.
Yeah.
For this time period, this was a movie produced with a lot of love from the cast and crew. They all seemed like they were having a good time. Yeah, I hope more people get a chance to see this.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. I know there's a DVD release. I'm not sure how hard that is to get a hold of. I've got one. But this is definitely a movie I can wholeheartedly recommend you go and seek out if you're able to. For sure. It has a really cyberpunk feel without leading too far into the cyberpunk tropes, but they're still being there. There's like no cyberware. There isn't really a net to speak of. We still have the megacorporations, the dystopia, the death of the middle class, the predatory rich, all that stuff. And also Mick Jagger.
Yeah, I feel positive in the way that I did coming out of watching Johnny Mnemonic. Like, they're not similar movies, but they do share some sort of like thematic DNA.
It's just a great movie. I can kind of see why it didn't quite take off. It doesn't quite have it. And, I mean, it does have some flaws, but despite all of that, it's just a really fun time and a really decent movie.
Yeah. I think it might have just been a little too high concept. When I told my girlfriend what movie we were doing, she read the description and she's like, that sounds weird. And I was like, It was a little weird, but not as weird as you would think. It's pretty much a straight up, man on the run action movie, just with some like sci-fi trappings. But I think those might have been enough of a barrier to entry because, like, imagine you are someone in the 90s trying to explain this movie to other people in the 90s. It would have been difficult at the very least.
Also, Terminator 2 came out 2 years before that. So I don't know, I haven't looked at any of the advertising, but if they were trying to play up the time travel angle and people went to see that movie, I can see why they might have been disappointed because it's really just that one part at the beginning and that's it. Time travel really isn't discussed at all throughout the rest of the movie. It's just sort of there and it's accepted that only rich people have access to it, and that's specifically for stealing people from the past to live in. Yeah, if you can find it, check it out. Freejack, it's worth a watch. Kate, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Army of Meat on Twitter, and you can also listen to my other movie podcast at Weaving Spaghetti. Find it on Apple Podcasts and other places. Where can people find you, Sky?
You can find me on Twitter at shard underscore Corso. SHARD underscore CORSO. If you have any suggestions for the show, you can drop them at our Interesting Choices Twitter. That's INTRESTINGCHOI6.
It's never not going to be funny to me.
I figured if we couldn't have the full thing, then at least it'll be funny.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
We'll see you next episode.
We'll see you.
Keep on jacking.
No.
No. Never.